Hey guys, Luxger here. Just last week, I finished what could possibly be one of my favorite RPGs, that being Xenogears, a game that has a lot of influence on Xenoblade as a whole. However, this video isn't going to be about Xenogears entirely, as I want to save that for a future video. For now, I wanted to tie in a theory that I have been thinking about while playing Xenogears. And since I wanted to tie into what I saw from the last Xenoblade 3 trailer, now, I'm still going hard on the next Xenoblade 3 monthly update video, which should be coming out within the next few weeks. So if you want to get updated on the latest video, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. And like and comment on this video as well. This video is going to contain some pretty massive spoilers for Xenogears. I highly advise you guys to finish the game or read Perfect Works as well, which some terms or themes from Xenogears will be applied. And if you don't really care about that and just want to watch for the heck of it, that's perfectly fine too. I will also reference from my previous update video quite a bit. So if you haven't watched that, I have it linked in the video description or have a card on the screen as well. Spoilers for Xenoblade 1 and 2 as well. With that being said, let's get started! In the second trailer, we finally realized what the heck Melia meant by what the Uroboros is. And that's these creatures who, when paired with a person with the opposite gender from them, become more powerful in battle. These Uroboros seem to have a reason why this war persists, and why it abhors this world, as Melia said beforehand, and why the leaders of both Agnes and Kevesh seem to be attacking our main group because of this power that willingly transforms themselves into a form that has such limitless potential. Or in the case of Ethel, a new character we saw in the second trailer, they refer to Noah and the gang as monsters when she pursues them in order to stop the Ouroboros' influence. Naming these forms Ouroboros is interesting to me. As I talked about in the last monthly update video, the Ouroboros symbolizes the eternal return. For example, a blade in Xenoblade 2 starts out as a core crystal made from the genetics of its progenitor Titan, which then is reawakened by a human throughout their whole life until they finally die. And the blade returns to their core crystal without the memories of their driver, which constantly goes on from generation to generation until they eventually become titans and the blades die themselves, giving birth to more core crystals in the process. This is how all rest fundamentally works, all because of the Ouroboros. But what if the Ouroboros can be used to manipulate your lifespan so you can keep on living through generations of yourself? This is what I want to call the cyclical crisis theory. A way for typical human beings to avoid their destruction proposed by a higher entity by transforming into a monster where the end is the alpha and the beginning is the omega. Let's start about how this theory is portrayed in Xenoblade 3. In a leaked GameStop info dump of the game released shortly after the second trailer, we see that soldiers from the day they joined the war are on a time limit of 10 years. When that time goes up, they are straight up dead. No one keeps living after that. In fact, Mio has joined the army of Agnes from a pretty young age and is very close to her death because of this 10-year ruling. As we see her count down the days in her journal, we also see a character named Nimue in the trailer who is literally about to die, as her body is all covered in this metallic-like substance, the result of when her time is up. Throughout the beginning parts of the game, I believe Noah and the gang are so frustrated with the war and how there has to be a set time limit for when they die, that they want to find a way to end this curse. Which is where we meet the mysterious giant of the trailer, a figure that we don't really know much about except that he has sharp teeth and immense power. The giant seems to have overheard someone from the game wanting to end their life right now so they don't have to wait for the 10-year curse to end. The Death Wish sends. However, with something very important about what we know from Xenogears, and taking cyclical crisis theory in mind, we can make an educated guess as to who this mysterious giant is. You see, many Xeno fans have pointed this guy being very similar to Graf. I find this very interesting, especially as an Ouroboros form. In the story of Xenogears, Graf was created because of wanting power from the Zohar. Lacan, an ancestor to the main character of the story, feeling the powerlessness of losing Sophia, seeks out the Zohar after knowing how it gave the people with the blood of the contact immense power. However, he didn't make complete contact with the Zohar, resulting in his power becoming incomplete. and then becoming Groth. From there, he awakened the Diablos Core, Deus' mobile terminals, and destroyed the whole world, leading to the event called the Day of Collapse. Lacan later woke up to everyone turning on him, horrified, then remembered Sophia's final words, and kept on living. Lacan later dies and enters the reincarnation cycle, but Groth's soul still goes on, remembering Sophia's final wish, and possessing many others in the process. Groth continues to find the next contact, many years later. To put it simply, Groth wanted to increase his powers, awaken Deus so he can destroy all life, and use the contact's power, which in Xenogears' case is in the form of id, and release all humans from the reoccurring curse of what everyone's faith will become. Wait a second, the 10-year lifespan of Ionio's soldiers? Isn't that what the whole Xenoblade 3 gang is trying to stop? This is where we go back to the mysterious giant, where during their battle, it is revealed that Noah and Mio have some connection with each other, and when the process called Interlink is met, they transform into a new form called Uroboros. In fact, what if I told you that the process of Interlink is the same thing that happened when the contact touches the Zohar? When Faye makes contact with the Zohar, he doesn't seek power like Lacan did. Rather, he wants to retrieve Ellie back from the clutches of Deus, and thus his gear became the Xenogears, as opposed to Groth's Alpha Weltall when he made contact with Zohar. The mysterious giant is perceived to be an Ouroboros based on its core and overall design, but its interlink process seems to be different compared to Noah and Mio. We don't even know if it's a human or a soul that resides within the giant Ouroboros. However, I can really say for certain about the mysterious giant is that there is some sort of connection to our main character that brought it there. Like, what if the giant's soul was the soul of Noah's ancestor, just like how Lacan was Faye's ancestor and was the last contact before Faye even existed? Groth wanted Faye's power to be able to destroy the entire world and everything within it, so the whole entire curse cycle would end. So the ancestor wanted Noah and his friends to also destroy the world along with him, just so they can destroy the curse cycle as well? Ouroboros abhor this world. Wouldn't it be fitting if Melia is right, and all of these monstrous looking figures were to succeed, and make the whole world fall under the chaos it brings? There's really no way the manifestation of the soul of the world could just want to have a definitive ending. Unless it's done by someone who doesn't have control over their thoughts and actions, and is made to act lifeless, only to achieve self-actualization in the meantime. It becomes a crisis of one controlling the Ouroboros. That's the third point on what the Ouroboros represents in Gnosticism, the unconscious to the consciousness. In the prologue in Xenogears after the crash of the Eldritch, we see the awakening of the Great Mother, or Myong Hua. Myong in Xenogears represents what is known as the growth of self-awareness. This is shown because Myong lives within the genetics of all women, and when the first Myong dies, the next Myong takes form by possessing the consciousness of a living woman. In Xenogears' Perfect Works, Myong as the Great Mother can keep humans in what is known as the Urobolos ring. Yeah, unfortunate translation there. Rather than letting them escape and determine one's self-growth. When Krelian discovers that Ellie possesses the Urobolos ring inside her genes, this doesn't mean she is perceived as the mother, or the last antitype. It's the perfect match to Myong's factor for making Deus become conscious, since Myong, the Grey Mother, is in fact Deus. And then at the very end of Xenogears, Krelian makes us fight the literal manifestation of what the Ouroboros of this game is. A serpent with purple hair. No, not that one. Yes, this one. Looks a lot different from the one in Xenoblade 3. So, why are they similar, you may ask? Let's start with this Ouroboros, who is what Myong/Deus ultimately becomes. The conscious being developed from the unconscious ring. This is the true mother Krelian was referring to when Ellie and Myong fused together. In Gnosticism, Deus and the Ouroboros can be described as the Demiurge, which is depicted as a serpent with a lion-faced head known as Yaldabaoth, with Myong clearly representing the snake part of the Demiurge. Ellie represents the lion, not just because of the long orange mane she's got, but because of how her gear changes from Vierge, which comes from the astrological constellation Virgo, to Regers, or Regulus, a prominent star in the constellation Leo, which lies in between the crossing of the Virgo and Leo astronomical months. Takahashi, you son of a bitch! Nevertheless, when the Uroboros is defeated, the cursed Myeong-Daeus cycle is destroyed, and self-actuality of all people has been brought back, never to be brought back up again. Similarly to the Uroboros, its power comes from the shared destiny from two people, like how Guernica Vandam said in the trailer, and its power comes from the unconscious minds trying to regain consciousness, or the representation of themselves. Wait a moment. What do you mean by this? What I mean is that Noah and the rest of the gang are an unconscious manifestation of themselves using fog, just like what was shown with Ethel's point of view when she has the red in her right eye.
They aren't real people in this case.
Even though they appear to be real people. Xenoblade fans compare this to the phantasms in the Spirit Crucible Alpus in Xenoblade 2, where Adam manifests himself as foggy figures to challenge them at their strength. Hey look, the eyes are very similar too! This goes into a term taken from Xenosaga known as the collective unconscious, which is very similar to how the Urobolos ring behaved in Xenogears. Instead of creating something and turning it into an imaginary being, it derives the soul from the original conscious being and combines it to a spiritual union of sorts. Like how Deus brought Ellie and Myeong together, it also can mean the worlds are part of two overlapping dimensions, where everything in the universe is something existing, and extends into these two domains, both real and imaginary. In the case of humans, their substance and flesh, perceived, are the real numbered domain, and the consciousness and the soul can't be perceived, which makes them exist in the imaginary domain. Krellian gives a great example of this in the wave existence, where humankind and the soul of humankind are part of these overlapping dimensions. The soul of humankind being a great example of the collective unconscious. Now, I don't really know much about Xenosaga terminology since I've yet to play the games, but feel free to correct me about what the collective unconscious means in this context, while also bearing similarities to Xenogears. Either way, with the collective unconscious meshing the souls together, and unionizing them through a shared destiny is what causes their Ouroboros forms, granting them a certain amount of time in battle before they overheat and stop working. But it never seems that over the course of the game, you can try and keep the Ouroboros even longer, perhaps through spiritual development between the pairs that can turn them into an Ouroboros, or some Demiurge/Deus shenanigans. Let me know what you guys think of this theory, and if I'm feeling very confident about if this is going to happen in Xenoblade 3. Of course, I can be entirely wrong, and Takahashi would give me a new one to bite me in the butt. However, I really want to talk about Xenogears lore, and how stuff taken from this game like the Urobolos, the mysterious giant looking similar to Graf, or Noah and Mio's Ouroboros looking very similar to Veltal, can it impact the story of this game? I would very much like to know what you guys have to say. Also, remember the time the Ouroboros was trending on Twitter? Let it be known that whenever you see that trending again, the soul of the world, the eternal return, the unconscious to the conscious, the need for self-actualization or self-growth, a freaking snake with long purple hair, a snake with a lion's head wanting to destroy the world, a ring found within every woman's genetics, an unconscious being covered by fog, and a giant purple mech suit with the symbol in its core are all associated with each other?
And it's just a beast eating its own tail, for the love of Zanza!